Hello, and welcome to episode 2. To summarize the last episode, just 1 year before diagnosis, I looked like this, and went from this to what you see before you now, all because of scleroderma. And as mentioned, autoimmune diseases are still a total mystery. In most other diseases, there's usually a culprit that can be found in the blood with a microscope, like a bacteria or a virus. In an autoimmune situation, the only evidence to be found is the vandalism in the body done by the body. There can be improper antibody proteins found in the blood, but that's more of a reaction to what's going on. And what's going on in an autoimmune scenario is still baffling researchers. I mentioned that I believe my genetics couldn't handle heavy metals. Those heavy metals are long gone from my body, but they messed up my immune system on the way through 13 years ago. Whether or not junk food also had a hand in that is still to be determined, but it's a fact that junk food causes inflammation, and if one has a disease causing inflammation, why add more on top of it? Finally, I also mentioned I've been in remission for 6 years now, and I believe my all-natural food and drink diet made the difference. Some doctors have said, well, your body probably just figured things out on its own. Well, yes, it did. But just as something threw my immune system off course, my diet assisted in getting it back on course. Before I went all natural food, I ate mostly good, but made the common mistake of thinking, as long as the majority of my food is good, the junk food shouldn't hurt me. But we're talking chemistry here, and just a drop of anything can completely change the results of an experiment. All too often there are chemicals where there's no such thing as a safe amount. So everyone asks me, what diet do you follow? FODMAP, paleo, keto? I don't follow any diets with a registered trademark or with a book or products to sell. The most important thing is what I don't eat, ever, not even on special occasions. Nothing artificial, processed, or inflammatory. By artificial, I mean no chemicals, no artificial sweeteners, high fructose corn syrup and aspartame being the worst, no dyes or preservatives or vegetable oils. By processed, I mean no lunch meats, frozen dinners, and almost all packaged foods. By inflammatory, I mean all things that cause irritation on contact, like sugar, alcohol, and dairy. With the exception of wild-caught fish, organic chicken, and eggs, I'm primarily plant-based. No beef, pork, or dairy. My personal situation needs the nutrients in fish and chicken that just aren't to be found in beef and pork. No need to waste money on food that's not going to help me. I should mention that humans are the only adult species on Earth that consumes dairy. Not their own dairy, but cow dairy, the cell structure of which can't be absorbed by most humans. I do like some goat cheese on my eggs, and I make that exception because the molecular structure of goat's milk is entirely different and far more digestible than dairy from cows. And goat milk in the form of cheese is a fermented product. As far as glutens and nightshades, I believe that some people do have allergies to them, but if you don't, there's no problem with eating them. It's the ingredients of bread that's more of a problem than glutens are. And what about desserts? I rarely partake, but if you must, keep them natural, like the stuff Grandma makes, or the local pastry shop, and only give in now and then, as sugar, even pure cane sugar, is still inflammatory. The only sweeteners I have in my house are raw, unfiltered honey and liquid stevia. I say liquid only because the powder version uses artificial powder infused with the liquid stevia. When it comes to snack food, you can find organic tortilla chips and pretzels, and they're basically harmless, but they have no nutrients whatsoever. It's just filler food that usually has more salt than necessary. My drinks are water, hot organic teas, and unsweetened almond milk. No bottled teas because stuff like Arizona and Sobe is not real tea. No sodas. Flavored seltzer waters like LaCroix are okay, but like the organic chips, they have no nutrients to offer the body, like good herbal tea does. One thing that does not stop with an autoimmune disease is the body replacing old cells with new ones. Every cell a body is made of in about 7 years' time. This is where one gets to intervene and make sure those new cells are as good as they can be by giving the body the proper building materials. And those building materials we're talking about is your food and drink. You can build cells with veggies and water or cheese puffs and Mountain Dew. It's up to you. In addition to food and drink, we make cells from the air we breathe. Not a whole lot we can do about that other than voting for officials that are concerned about our environment. While there is no way to avoid bad food and drink ingredients 100%, just making your best effort puts you ahead of the curve right there. With the power of intention, everyone can and should eat better. Now, I am admittedly not a licensed nutritionist, but some of the worst advice I've ever been given while in the hospital was from a licensed nutritionist. I'm speaking from experience, not from a textbook. So to summarize my diet, the first thing in the morning on waking up is a phytonutrient smoothie. That's fruit and greens and a little water in a blender. And that's it. No seeds, nuts, or almond milk. Those kind of smoothies can come later in the day. For me, it's about 1.5 cups of organic frozen berry mix with a couple of handfuls of baby spinach leaves, also organic, and just enough water to cover the berries. I use the blender to get all that wonderful fiber, and I'm off and going. The rest of the day I make up as I go along. A banana, muesli cereal or oatmeal, kale omelets with some of that goat cheese, homemade bean soups or miso soup, salads, organic white rice and veggies in a steamer, along with a frozen fish fillet, a little grated ginger root with some black pepper. The black pepper makes the ginger more absorbable, and a little cilantro. Or sometimes the same thing with organic quinoa instead of the rice. When I do quinoa, I add turmeric powder and the black pepper instead of the ginger, as turmeric seems to mess with the rice cooker's ability to perfectly cook the rice. Now I say white rice because for anyone with digestive issues, white is far easier to digest than brown. Rice should always be organic, as anything else is bleached and enriched. Same goes for pasta, which I also make once a week in a big container that lasts me a couple of days. Because of my hands, I get frozen veggies as they're already washed and prepped, and the flash freezing can actually preserve more of the nutrients than the slowly dying fresh veggies that takes a few days to get to the produce section, which I still buy for stuff that isn't frozen. And even though not all produce is genetically modified, I still always buy organic because most non-organic produce is sprayed with some pretty nasty pesticides, including glyphosate, also known as Roundup. I do like coconut milk yogurts made by So. They use cane sugar, and having one of those in a day is the only sugar I have in the entire day. I'm sure I'm forgetting some things here, but as I have more episodes ahead, I'll eventually get it all. I drink mostly water, distilled water. It's far cleaner than any other kind. And while it's true that distilled water has no minerals in it, water that does have minerals in it never says what kind of minerals it has in it, because they don't know. So I choose distilled water along with the known minerals in my daily multivitamin. I also make organic teas with that same distilled water, and as mentioned, unsweetened original almond milk. Well, that about wraps it up for this week. Join me next time as we get into the equally important subject of maintaining a healthy mind. Later.